Good morning again, ladies and gentlemen. Let's start. My name is Roman Meliška, and I'll be your host throughout this 2-day conference. The name of the conference is Try Change. So I'd like to encourage you to actually do it over the course of these 2 days. This conference follows up on a previous edition where we had Carlos Moreno as a guest. And it's a conference for everybody who works in cities or for cities, for municipalities, for districts. And you're all welcome. This conference is here only thanks to the ladies from the Walk the City organization. It is their dedicated work, so please a round of applause for them. They would never ask for it themselves. Thank you. Thank you, you're a wonderful audience. So, without further ado, Petra Sirova will welcome all our guests, and this conference would not be here without her. Well, not just without me. Can you hear me? Good morning. Good morning to everybody. Welcome, whether you're here on site or online, because the conference is streamed. I'd like to give a very warm welcome to all our speakers from all over Europe, the USA, and the Czech Republic, of course. We're very happy that you've come to share your experience with us. I think we all know that our cities need a huge transformation. There are many reasons for that. Climate change, growing prices of housing, energies, and increasing volume of transport. And in our organization, we've been looking for a way to convince as many people as possible that change is needed. We have realized that trying to scare people doesn't really work. When you tell people we will suffocate in our cities and burn to death, stop driving your car, this doesn't work. People are either anxious as a reaction or they are passive. They don't act. Preaching doesn't work either. When you try to preach to people to be responsible, don't drive their cars, like the reaction is resistance. Beautiful visuals don't work either. I don't know if you like the visual design of our conference. We feel that it expresses the mission of the conference very well, but on social networks we hear commentaries like all people should just go inside a cafe and not take up space for cars, and don't you want to have a cafe on rails maybe so that the transport doesn't work at all? So people are very negative about this. What helps is when you give people positive emotions, when you give them the chance to experience something nice firsthand. And psychologists confirm this. They confirm that people stop driving their car if they have a positive alternative. That is why 2 years ago we invited Carlos Moreno to introduce the concept of the 15-minute city in the Czech Republic. I think the 15-minute city is an ingenious thing. You reorganize the city so that everything you need is close to you and you don't need a car. That is why now we're organizing a conference about tactical urbanism. That's the main theme of today and tomorrow. It's again a wonderful tool for changing public space for very little money with a lot of efficiency, and in the course of it people usually experience something new and something positive. In the Czech Republic there's not much information about tactical urbanism, but we do. School streets, for example, and School Street is an example of tactical urbanism. And when we do surveys before introducing a school street somewhere, the reaction among parents is usually 50-50. Once the parents actually have the chance to try to walk to the school in the morning on a calm street without cars, and they enjoy the walk and they see other people enjoy their walks, they change their minds, and at the end of the project 80 to 90% of the people involved want to keep the change in place. So we hope that this conference will inspire you, have fun. Thank you for having come, and I would like to thank the organizational team from Walk the City for their dedication and hard work during the preparation phase of the conference, and especially Dominika Marešová, our colleague who bore the brunt of all the organization. Thank you, and have fun.
Děkuji.
Thank you. Now, I'll ask two of our distinguished guests from the Prague municipality to speak. It's a great honor for us to have here at CAMP and the Institute for Planning and Development, and we thank them for having provided the premises. It's a great honor for us to have Zdeněk Hřib here, the Deputy Mayor for Transport, and then Petr Hlaváček, the Deputy Mayor for Development. The floor is yours, Mr. Hřib. Good morning to you all. Prague is a beautiful city, but it is also very specific. It has its history, its historical charm, and it's a big challenge to apply certain innovative and, most importantly, functional solutions that would help the city evolve. I'm very happy that I was able to provide the auspices for this conference, which focuses on how to change the city. You can change the city not just through big investments and modern architecture, and yes, we're planning a new Philharmonic, for example, and other big investments projects, but you can also change the city through very small interventions. These interventions don't cost much money. The big thing that changes is your mindset. That's the most important thing here. And as has been said, experiencing change is very important. And this makes me think of the Mariánské Square right in front of the city hall. We used to have a parking lot there. It was called the Mafia Square because the square was full of SUVs of lobbyists who came there for meetings with politicians. And a few years ago, we transformed the square, and now people can actually use it. You have chairs and tables there. And the process started in 2019. We also introduced barriers that prevent too many cars from entering the square. We organize events there. The square is alive, and you can see the change almost immediately. It suddenly became a place for meeting, for events, exhibitions, markets, music, and other things. So I think the Mariánské Square is a great example of positive change. We're still waiting for some final construction changes that will finish off the big project, and we have to fight our fight with conservationists. That is unfortunately something very specific for Prague. If you want to do anything in the city, anything modern, like blue-green infrastructure, modern transportation, barrier-free transportation without curbs, etc., you have to fight conservationists. And as regards the mindset fight, there is a second example I would like to mention, and that is the Malá Strana district and the Smetana embankment. We have beautiful historical streets in these areas. I think the Smetana embankment is the best embankment to view the castle. It has a wonderful view, and it has been talked about in Prague for a very long time. In 2012 and 13, there were several one-day closures of the embankment, and people loved it. They immediately filled the streets. There were many pedestrians, up to 10,000 visitors per day. So it was clear the place had a much bigger potential. But of course, the downside is that you have to limit individual transportation by cars, especially all the unnecessary transit. So we have to discuss this with our coalition partners at the City Hall. We know from the past that rapid changes do not work because they're too harsh and they will stop any positive transformation. So we do it step by step, very gradually. We added more trees, we introduced a separate lane for bikes, and it's very gentle changes step by step. And now we finally have to take the step of limiting unnecessary transportation there because it slows down trams, for example, in the area. Cars slow down trams. Keep your fingers crossed for us. We have a lot of data, we have a lot of arguments for why the area should be organized the way we think it should be organized, but there's a lot of resistance on the other side. Most of it is ideological, I believe. I think the changes are inevitable, though, because we've been talking about it for more than 20 years. So for me, this conference is very important. I am happy that I was able to open this conference, and I look forward to your opinions. Thank you, Mr. Zip. And now Petr Hlaváček. A few more opening words, and then the first presentation. Thank you, and thank you, Petra, for dedicating your time to this. Most of the time, politicians come to these events and then they have to disappear. Unfortunately, this will be me today because I have to go to the city council. But Zdeněk will remain because he has no press releases to be published on Monday. Anyway, why am I saying this? Last time when I was here, I learned a lesson. I learned a lot from Carlos. We know that we need to make Prague a denser city, but we were not able to explain it to the people. It was a political mistake. A short distance city is a much better notion. The wording is much better. People understand it better. It's about explaining to them that this is not about having more concrete in the city, but having a better functioning city when the density is appropriate. And I think it's important to have data. So Prague has 500 square kilometers. And if you took the whole metropolis, the density is 26 people per hectare, which is 2,620 people per square kilometer. And the part of Prague where there are buildings, there are 5,400 people per square kilometer or 54 people per hectare, which really is redlining when it comes to efficient functioning. This data is based on a paper census, which I don't think is valid anymore. But anyway, according to this census, we have 1.3 million people. In Vienna, there are 1.9 million. But according to a mobile phone census, which I think is more practical, even though the authorities do not really count it. The actual number is 1.6 million people. So compared to the paper census, there are around 300,000 people more in Prague, and this influences everything. Urban planning, taxes, for example, and other things. So you have to have valid data, and you have to open your mind. When we compare cities like Prague and Paris, for example, and when I say Paris, I mean the inside part of Paris, not the whole sprawling agglomeration, then the density is different in these two cities. Also, we're highly critical of ourselves in the Czech Republic. Very often we are right to be critical of ourselves, but sometimes we take it a bit too far. And before COVID, our modal split, which I kept repeating at conferences over and over again, was pretty good. Our modal split was fine. 43% was public transportation, 33% was individual car transportation, 23% on foot, and 1% cyclists. Obviously, 1% cyclists is terrible, but 23% of people walking, that's better than Copenhagen. For example, the proportion of people who walk on foot. So this is the modal split in Prague, including all the people from Central Bohemia who come to Prague for work. And we like them. I'd like to say we have nothing against them. And then COVID came. And my faith is strong. I remember a council meeting where we had all this plastic in front of our faces, plastic panes, and I thought it was the end of the world. And we were talking about details, you know, like automatically opening tram doors again so that people don't have to touch buttons in the tramway. We had to deal with all those things. There were interesting impacts of this, but I won't go into that. And anyway, the modal split changed after COVID in an interesting way. Unfortunately, public transportation went down to 37%, but we're doing everything we can to take it back. And the cars also went down to 25%. And we know that 2% is combined transportation, which is very important, and those are the people commuting from the Central Bohemian region to Prague, so they first take the car, then public transportation. Then we have 35% of people who walk and 1% of bikers. So we need to change this, and the city must do everything it can. But it takes a long time. It takes a long time, and it costs quite a bit of money. And another important thing, Zdeněk, myself, and other colleagues, we've been working a lot on cooperating with the state and the railway authority on a feasibility model for a railway node in Prague. We call it Metro S. That's the nickname for it. And the idea is that you relieve the traditional routes for conventional transportation, and the railway node would make it much easier for you to pass through the city when you, for example, come from a smaller village outside of Prague. And it would, of course, strengthen the position of railway transportation, and it would support taking the train to Prague when you live just outside the city. There are many historical reasons for this. Many cities have this system, but Prague doesn't. Prague developed in a different way, and we don't have this S-Bahn system, as it is called in Germany, for example. And that is why we need a new railway bridge. There's a big discussion right now about replacing the railway bridge we have, we need to have a 3-lane bridge that would complement this railway node. This will take some time, but I believe it will be a breakthrough. I think it will impact the numbers a lot. And in the end, public transportation and walking on foot will be much stronger. But the important thing is you cannot omit all the other smaller areas around Prague. It really is a very lively region as a whole. And the last thing I'd like to say, sometimes you might think that all politicians do is talking. But the debate is difficult, the decisions are difficult, and I look forward to you being part of it. The Czech route, RUT, is an abbreviation for budgetary calculation of taxes, budgetary allocation of taxes, and we have 40,000 crowns per person, and 18,000 of that goes to public transportation, which we're very proud of. But it's not very sustainable. We need to look for a model going forward. If we want to support public transportation, and we do, then I think our capacities are almost full in terms of money and organizational capacity. We need to change the model. So those were just a few words from me. I didn't want to say any empty words. I wanted to give you some data. So now I have to dash, as I said, and Zdeněk will be here. Thank you, Petr, and good luck at your council meeting.